Dear friends, I will be speaking in English for this and a few other subsequent videos in which I want to outline some of the reforms that I've alluded to in my initial video, which was in Hindi, and it had a kind of a holistic perspective on reforms. In this particular video, I want to talk about political reforms, which is basically the electoral system reform and the reform for ensuring that our parliamentarians are clean. So I mentioned in my overarching video that we must ensure that our politicians are honest and clean, and if we don't ensure at least this minimum condition of honesty, we can be very sure that these people are going to loot us, as they have been doing for the past 65 years. So what exactly do I mean by this package of political reforms? I will come to the bureaucratic reforms separately. In this particular space, I have outlined in my initial video the need for state funding of elections. This, I think, is the most fundamental reform, because as you can imagine, if somebody spends a huge amount of money and they get absolutely nothing in return, particularly if they lose, and if they win, then all they get is an opportunity to make money from the system, which is what they then go ahead and do. So we need to make sure that the trade-off at the point of entering is not so much stacked against the participants of the political system, in the people, the candidates. So one way to deal with that, and perhaps the only sensible way that I've come across anywhere in the world, is through a standard payment per vote, per valid vote received, which in the case of Australia, as I mentioned earlier, is around $2 per vote. It could be around 20 rupees to 50 rupees in India. What that will do is it will allow people like me, who are honest but with no spare money, to contest elections. When such people contest elections, we will potentially spend around 20 to 25 lakh rupees of our own. That money, we are hopeful, will give us around 1 lakh votes, or maybe 50,000 votes, or whatever, without much preparation, let's say, without a party. That gives back a possibility that we will recover most of the money spent. So people like me will then contest elections, which I think is the first thing you need in India, because if people like me are completely forced out of the electoral system and only the crooks or the wealthy are allowed, as is currently the case, then we can be very sure that no matter what other system of politics or reforms or anything we do, it is not going to work. If our parliamentarians are nothing but crooks and corrupt people, basically criminals in many cases, then we should forget the idea of a clean country or good governance. So let us make sure that people who contest elections, first of all, that they don't lose money. That is not enough, though. We must make sure that there's no black money used in elections. Today there is hundreds of thousands of crores, or well, not maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe 30,000-40,000 crores. This is the huge amount of money that is bandied about in the press. But that is the amount of money that's spent by parties, both legal and illegal. And that kind of money is actually all black money, or most of it is black money. And that is the real fundamental driver of corruption. That if you are making use of black money, that means you first have assets, which are related to black money, real estate, or banks, Swiss bank account, or whatever. Now, the only way to make sure that this is minimized is you have complete and total transparency of electoral funding, of expenditure. Whatever, doesn't matter what the person has spent, it should be disclosed, there should be total transparency, and there should be a complete independent audit by the Election Commission. So this is the total transparency. There should be the limits issue is simply a fake and hypocritical issue. Very few parties, when candidates today are spending anything within the limits that are prescribed, why not have simply a system that will monitor and ensure that they are disclosing their accounts transparently? That is the second part. The third part is fast-track courts. I think the large bulk of our politicians today, the candidates today, are criminals, and actually serious killers or murderers or whatever you call them. And I won't go into details or name anybody here. We know that a vast number of them are actually criminals. What has happened here is that the criminal justice system has completely failed. As it has failed, these people are quite sure that they will never be caught. You need to have been, it's not simply a charge sheet that has to be placed against you. You have to be indicted by the court in some form or shape. And that, I think, takes so much time in India, maybe 20 years, 30 years, that people can do whatever they want in the meanwhile, contest elections, be as corrupt as they want, and nobody can catch them. What we need here is a special fast-track court for people who enter politics, particularly the ones who get elected. So these people should be immediately, all cases against them have to be expedited at some super rapid speed, so that within 6 months or 1 year, all the cases are disposed of, and obviously these people will then potentially go behind bars, which is one way to clean up the system. Finally, you're not going to get people like me. Let me assure you very clearly, you are never going to get people like me with some capabilities, some knowledge of governance, some specialization in economics or any of these particular management related fields. You're never going to get them into politics unless you pay people like me well. Which means that I'm not expecting a wonderful amount of money or a great amount of money, but it should not be such that I'm so really suffering from, let's say, middle class poverty or low level poverty, which is what it was in the IS, for example. Had it not been for two of us in the IS, I don't think we could have managed even our normal life properly. It was such low salaries were there right through our life till I resigned. So we definitely need to pay our politicians well, and we don't pay them well at all today. We actually pay them much less than even than IS officers. We need to really jack up the salaries. Now Singapore pays around $2 million for its ministers. I think that's quite reasonable for India. Comparable amounts for politicians could be anywhere in the range of $200,000–300,000 per MP or MLA. This amount of money may appear very high, but when you actually look at it in terms of the incentives, that you're getting the right people into the system, people who actually understand how to govern, people who have the experience, who have worked for 35 years, let's say, in this field of governance, these people are actually not going to come in and participate in your system unless you actually pay them well. So that is, I think, the basic 4 points which will be part of the package. Now this money that I'm saying should be fixed by an independent commission. We don't want politicians deciding their own salaries. Let them create an independent commission, let them look at the world's best practice and let them pay accordingly. Then obviously there should be no perquisites. Today we pay a lot of money through perquisites. But anyway, this is all the matter of detail. I just outlined the 4 pillars: state funding of elections, total transparency of expenditures, the fast track courts for the criminals, and high salaries, sufficiently high to attract people like me into politics. I think with these particular reforms, we can get a system, a set of lawyers or lawmakers or political representatives who are both honest and competent. Thereafter, it's a matter of policy making, which I'll come to separately. But this, I think, for now, let me just close this video here, is the first pillar, the main pillar of political, of the governance system reform. And I hope that you will then consider this in more detail. It's in my book, Breaking Free of Nehru. The Sonek Ichhuria agenda has a lot of it. Please go to the website sonekichhuria.in. From there you download the agenda, provide me your feedback. I'm updating the agenda as we speak, and we'll have hopefully a very good agenda to offer to India in the coming few weeks. Thank you. Bye.